Good evening, everyone. Looks like we're getting a slightly slow start, so we'll just rest easy for a few moments and wait for a few others to drop in, and then we'll give each other a brief greeting and then practice together. Okay, once again, good evening. Would like to invite as many as are willing to have their cameras on and to say hello to each other, and perhaps say where you're calling in from and say hello, and then we'll practice together.
Hi from
Hello.
Maryland.
Antonio. John here.
Hello, I'm Deborah Ramsey. I'm coming Oregon, Salem. I assume we just are supposed to start. Yeah. So here I am.
Glad to
And I've
have
sat with you before, Howie, and I just really enjoyed it. So when I saw this, I thought, hey, I haven't
Great.
seen you for a while.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Keith here from Berkeley.
Hey, Keith.
Mark from San Francisco. Hi, Howie. Hi, everybody. Hi, hello, everybody.
Jill Regina, Saskatchewan.
Hey, Jill. I loved your picture, by the way, before you came on.
Thank you.
Hi, Howie.
Where?
It's Deb.
Oh, hey, Deb. Great to see you.
Katie from San Francisco.
I heard
Hi.
San Francisco. I didn't hear the name, though. Oh, Jane.
Katie.
There you are.
No,
No?
someone else. I'm from Alameda.
Hi, Jane. And
Hi. I'm Katie from San Francisco.
Hi, Katie. Great to see you.
I'm Victor from San Francisco.
Hello, Victor. Welcome.
Sorry. Mary from Santa Barbara. Sorry, I was on mute.
No problem. Nice to have you with us, Mary.
Frank from San Francisco.
Hey, Frank.
Camera's not working.
Oh, that's okay. Anyway, happy to be with all of you. Just very aware that I wasn't here last Tuesday, and I feel the difference when I'm not with the Mission Dharma community, and really happy to be back tonight and opportunity to practice together and be amazed, as I always am, at the feeling of support that we can even feel in this virtual setting, and how important it is right now as a peace offering in this world of spinning and worry and anxiety to settle in together to recognize, to get used to stabilize the possibility of peace in every moment. Why? Because peace is the natural state of our mind. When we're not going out of ourselves in search, when we stay. And so any moments that we offer that to ourselves, the peace and ease that is the peace and ease of our nature, we offer to everyone. And then we then add to that just the dedication of our practice to the welfare and benefit of everyone, knowing that we don't just practice for ourselves. So may we all be at ease And may we at least add to the ease and peace of this world instead of to the contentiousness and reactivity. So how do we do that? We don't really do anything. We just stay where we are. But a few little tricks that help us stay where we are as we let our eyes close softly and we let ourselves feel the seclusion of the dark. We feel the sense of our sitting body or whatever shape your body is in. And we know that if we're feeling our sitting body, that we are in present time. That's our greatest support in a way, because it's the only time. Any other time is imaginary. So we feel our body and we know that the past has passed and the future is just a dream. There's just this and we don't want to miss it. So we embrace that full experience of sitting quietly with our eyes closed. And notice how our body, when it's met with a kind and interested and relaxed attention, just the knowing that we're sitting, it begins to settle and still. And we let that stillness and settling of the body begin that very organic process of stilling and settling our discursive minds. Not because we're settling our minds really or quieting our minds, but that's our minds just naturally quiet when our attention comes together with our body in real time. The byproduct is a calmer abiding, a stilling. And as our mind becomes a little less preoccupied, free of its usual preoccupations, just notice that it's a little quieter. And we stay in that quiet. And we see that that is the nature of being aware, is a kind of quiet, aware presence. And it is supported by the full attention and full feeling of our sitting body. And then it's supported even more by anchoring, by remaining anchored in if you're able to feel this, anchored in the gentle movements and sensations that are created by our breathing. We just feel the way our body reacts to the breath, expanding and contracting, tingling, rising, falling, whatever your body does when it breathes, we feel it and we stay with it, breath by breath. Of course, when I say we stay with it, we just remain undistracted as long as that lasts, without any strain or tension, knowing that an undistracted mind is sometimes it's mostly temporary. But when you realize you've lost contact with the anchor of the body and breath, when you realize you've been lost in thought, that's a moment of mindfulness re-arising. So celebrate and use it as an opportunity to Put your mind back in your body back in your mind, so that any division, any separation between body and mind just melts into the openness of your practice. You're able to just feel the sameness of attention and body. Just this moment, just this body, just this being aware. Intimately feeling the body sitting, breathing. And intimately receiving other experiences, sounds, moods, other sensations, thoughts and images, everything welcome. And this unfolding now. This resting in a state of being aware. Supported by our body. If your mind is a little sluggish, come a little closer. And investigate the feeling of the body sitting and breathing. Or arouse a little delight or joy just in the experience of your body breathing. Or just arouse a little energy. Of course, if you're really restless, you have too much energy, then let's drop in the sense of calm and ease, concentration, tranquility. Mostly just be aware, be mindful of things just as they are, this body, this breath, this moment. When you're lost in thought, there's nothing that can be done. It's a condition. It's not personal. It's no one's fault. It's just thoughts, dreams without mindfulness rising up to notice them. So no problem. But when mindfulness, when you realize you've been lost in thought, that's when mindfulness has come back online. And that's the opportunity to celebrate reawakening and the opportunity to harmonize mind and body, arouse energy, soften mind and body, and intimately feel the texture of this body and breath or whatever is predominant. Just this moment, just this body or breath or whatever is in the foreground of awareness. Just be aware. Such a royal treat to sit with all of you. Very fertile environment tonight. Lots of thinking, lots of remembering. Walk down memory lane. Maybe some of it will slip into the Dharma tonight. But first, I would love to check in with you, see if there are any comments, questions, anything you noticed tonight, any topics that emerged from your practice or is alive in your practice right now, hopefully not too theoretical. And just a reminder that whatever your question, comment, topic will be likely some use to someone else. So please feel free. Use the raised hand function under reactions to let me know that you'd like to speak and love to hear from you. And we'll have a little time for a Dharmet. That means a small Dharma talk. So, are there any comments, questions, topics?
You can use the raised hand function if you want to share something.
Nancy, please feel free. Thanks for breaking the ice.
Howie, this is just an experience. I've just sold my home, which has been wrenching. I love this home.
I didn't hear the first part. Your sound was breaking up a little bit.
Okay. I said, this is an experience that I'm having, and any guidance would be appreciated. I have just sold my home. I love my home. I've needed to sell it and to downsize, and I feel sorrow. I'm okay with the sorrow. What I'm struggling with is the stress. I feel there's so much to do, and I'm not sleeping as well, and I'm just, anyway, any thoughts you have about how to deal with best when you're under a great deal of pressure and stress?
Well, I would say that you called it sorrow, or the grief of losing your home that you're so fond of. It's a loss. And so that itself is enervating, that will depress your energy a little bit and make it, I notice whenever I'm grieving, it's hard to do anything other than the bare minimum. So the fact that you have to jump through hoops and do many things, it's a lot. The only protection is you can only do a moment's worth at a time. The last moment's gone, the next one hasn't happened, and you just have to, it's what's overwhelming or what creates pressure is holding too much of what has to be done in your mind at once and forgetting that you can only handle a moment at a time. And if you just break it down into the unfolding now, just what can I do right this minute? Then you see that all you can ever do is work. You can't do the next moment. Now you can only do what's here, and the one that's right in front of you is pretty workable. But trying to do it all at once, which is what our mind tries to do, that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yes.
take your time.
Thank you.
And yeah, even if it's a lot, it's just every little thing has to be done, and it can only do what you can do. Anyway, good luck. And yeah, thank you for speaking about, in a way, about loss as well. Leith, is that correct? Am I saying your name right?
Yes, you are, Howie.
Yes.
So speaking of grief and loss, I've just recently experienced a very deep loss, and I'd like to make an observation and share that with you, but also I have a question. So on Saturday, I lost my mom. She passed. So a very deep loss. She was very elderly, and it's a blessing because she's in a better place. I was with her, holding her hand when she passed. And I'm extremely grateful for guidance I received from you and just over my journey of learning about being present and mindful, because shortly, I spent a lot of time with her over the last few months, and sometimes to get distracted and just to pass the time, play games. And I was going to do that. And I thought, well, I don't know how much time I have left with her. So I became extremely present, but my breath wasn't my focus. My mom was my focus, and I was holding her hand. And for about 45 minutes until she passed. So to me, it was a very beautiful experience that I was so present with Mom.
Lucky you.
And her passing.
Lucky you. And I'm so sorry for your loss, but lucky you that you got to have that moment with her, those moments.
It was beautiful. And I mean, it's sad and all of that, but I was so present and so there. And it was a type of an experience that I've never had before, to be so present with something that was so meaningful. And the next night I'd already had tickets booked for a concert that I was going to with a friend. And I went to that concert with this mindset of being there and being present. And I've never enjoyed a musical concert more. I was so there with all the musical instruments and the voices. It was very different, that I was in a different place right then with being present. But then the next day, that was yesterday, my sister and I sat down and wrote up Mom's obituary. So I wasn't so present. We were in the past. Mom's life.
You were in the present, reflecting on the past.
Okay, that's a way to look at it, because that is leading me to my question.
The truth is, we're never, ever out of the present. We only imagine that we are.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
there is only a present. There is only a present. And sometimes we're lost in memories, and we may not know that we're present, but it sounds like you were present, reminiscing or reflecting on your mom.
Absolutely. Of the last 95 years of her life is what we were trying to condense into an obituary.
What a blessing to be able to do that.
Yes. Okay. So my question then is, and perhaps you've answered it, is that since then now I have been really thinking about my mom and the memories and all the different wonderful times I've had with her and the times of her life. So I've certainly, from my perspective, I thought, okay, I'm not here. I'm not in the present. I'm in the past. And how do I make sure that I can remain present? But perhaps what you've just said answered that question.
Well, I think when I'm really reflecting on someone, really thinking about somebody, I can be so caught in the reverie of it, or the pain of it, or the loss of it, or whatever it might be, that I may lose contact with my body. And so if you can balance it with moments of mindfulness, oh yeah, I realize this is what I'm doing right now, and really check in with your body. And just make sure that you don't become so disembodied that you become just a ball of thought, that you can engage your body in even the effect of thinking. So that how does this feel when I think about my mom, and how do I feel it through my body? And so then the very thing of reflecting and reminiscing and all of that actually brings you even more into a rooted experience of grief, maybe.
And would you say that's the same with, because I find myself also thinking about my future without my mom. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm not in the present here. I'm thinking about, gee, I'm not going to be able to phone her now. I'm not going to be able to go visit. But the
Know
same
that
thing
I'm
for her.
imagining the future, and how does it feel when I do that?
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Howie.
Sorry about your loss.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the name of the game if you're born. Noemi, please feel free.
Hi, Howie.
Good to see you, Noemi.
Really interesting one. I just today, my mother died on the 19th of January. So at least my heart goes out to you. And today we interned her ashes. And I was thinking of something you say over and over, and that is the thought of your mother is not your mother. So that kind of segues into what Lisa was saying about the present moment and thinking about what life is without my mother.
Mm.
So my idea is I had to come home for Bart, which really annoyed me because I have to be home for an appointment thing tomorrow. But I wanted to stay with my dad, and I couldn't. But anyway, on Bart, for people who are elsewhere in the country, it's inner county train. Anyway, so I had to come home, and I thought it would bring closure with something in turning her ashes, which were, and my parents home the last month and a half. We brought them home before setting up this service. Anyway, but the thought of your mother is not your mother. And so if my mother doesn't exist on this plane, and who knows if she exists elsewhere. So when she doesn't exist on this plane, and one thinks about her, she's still not my mother, right? If we go with that thought of the thought of your mother is not your mother. So she doesn't exist.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily make that conclusion. I would stay with the thought of my mother as not my mother, but boy, am I happy that I can think about my mother, the approximation of my mother. And when I do, I feel that whatever that connection is, that memory, that I feel the way she lives in me, as my memories, so I'm really happy I can think about my mother. But the ultimate truth is a thought of your mother is not your mother. It's a thought. It's a picture. It's a feeling. It's temporary. But everything is temporary. But it's a beautiful thing that you can do that you can think about her.
Oh.
So making the conclusion that she just doesn't exist, that seems like you could, if you landed in that, it would be depressing.
It just that you said that, it's my mother is me.
There you go. There you go.
Because I have a blood.
Yes, that's a beautiful thought. That,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
that makes me feel better. It's
I love that. I love that. That reminds me of a poem that I think I brought along tonight. If I get lucky, I will have it at hand. Excuse me, everyone, for maybe making a little noise with the papers.
Thank you, Howie.
Thank you. And again, to me, Dave, when her ashes are, as you called it, ashes are interned. Is that what? Yeah, that's a very powerful experience.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate what you're going through.
I carried it from my parents' home to the cemetery. So anyway, that was.
Yeah.
And even holding her, I said, "This is not my mother."
Yes. It's so mysterious, Noemi. There's no way that any of these deeper questions are answerable.
Thank you.
But thank you. I wanted to see if I could find this wonderful poem. But I think I'm going to strike out tonight. That Noemi inspired about her mother being her. One last check. Nope. I have to give it up. Mary, last but not least.
Well, first, I wanted to thank the First Lady about her house. I really appreciate it because I have something very overwhelming I need to take care of, and you kind of get overwhelmed, and I'm trying to remember just do a little bit at a time, So I wanted to thank her, number one.
That's Nancy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Secondly, I was with my mom also, and she died, and we were very, very close. And I remember after she had passed that her body was there, but it is that feeling who she was no longer there. She was so much more than her physical being. But there's, you may know better than me, in the Jewish services, at Yom Kippur, the Yisker, and there's some very beautiful passage. I wish I could remember it more exactly, but it's about how at this time we remember the people we love and how they still live within us and within our hearts, our memories, and it's such a treasure, but also that they live in us of who we are, what we learned from them, and what we experienced with them. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Howie.
Well, I'd like to make a little segue here into a few stray thoughts that I had for tonight. Clearly facing loss, facing loss of our home, loss of loved ones, facing things that are hard to bear, just in general, takes courage. And courage is not something that most of us maybe I'm in a different circle, but most of us are not. Most of us don't have the word courage in the foreground of our consciousness on a daily basis. I would say more in the foreground of our consciousness is worry, is want, is anxiety, fear, and which is really in some ways the opposite of courage. Courage is, at least in the Buddha Dharma, courage is sometimes spoken about as fearlessness, and sometimes it's spoken of as, and that's the word abhaya. You could look it up. There's a wonderful sutra called the Abhaya Sutra, and which is basically the sutra on fearlessness. And in the Abhaya Sutra, the idea is that that we tremble in a way, that we are afraid of loss, we're afraid of illness, we're afraid of death, even though, of course, these are the natural fruit of being born. The definition of birth, a leading cause of death, leading cause of illness, leading cause of all kinds of things that are hard to bear. And that when someone, at least the way this sutra puts it, when someone comes down with an illness, if they have cultivated a certain wisdom about letting go and about the limitations of depending on changing pleasures for one's happiness, if a person has related to the world of the senses with some wisdom, they're not so afraid when they become ill and they will have to when they realize and potentially die and not be able to have all of their creature comforts that they've had. They will let go gracefully. And those who have not cultivated the Dharma, who have not looked at the unreliable world of changing conditions with wisdom, will tremble in fear. And so the encouragement is to really cultivate the Dharma so that you can meet those moments with fearlessness. And if you have not really cultivated the Dharma, when you realize that your body will drop someday, you will tremble if you haven't cultivated the Dharma, you will be terrified of losing your body. But if you've really cultivated the Dharma and normalized the reality of loss, then you will meet that moment with less fear, with fearlessness, with abhaya. And if you've cultivated harmlessness in your life, you will meet illness and loss with the feeling of I lived well. If you don't cultivate harmlessness, if you don't cultivate wholesome, wise conduct, you'll meet your time of illness or time of loss with terror, with fear that you've practiced causing harm in your life. This is, that's the language of the sutras it's kind of archaic, but it's essentially saying you'll be freaked out by your actions of body, speech, and mind. And so obviously the encouragement is to practice blamelessness all the time so that you can meet that your end days with a kind of fearlessness and a confidence that you led a wholesome life. And then finally, the last part of this sutra is, if you have a lot of doubt about freedom and about liberation and about the deeper, unshakable peace that lives in you as you, when you start to die, you'll be afraid that you'll be not inundated, but you will experience a lot of doubt and uncertainty. But if you do gain confidence and you realize the Dharma, you practice so that you realize the full fruit of awakening, then you will feel that the fearlessness that comes from the confidence and the lack of doubt in the Dharma and in the path and in liberation. So that's on the side of fearlessness as a kind of courage that just grows naturally through cultivating a practice life. But then the other way that courage is spoken about in the teachings, and I think it really needs to be used a lot in our world that's gotten so, at least one of the ways that the word that kept going through my mind, we've gotten really soft and precious. Everything's so precious. And I just remember my Burmese teacher saying, it seems so out of sync with our daily life, our worldly life. He'd say, practice without regard for body or life. Practice as though your hair is on fire, with a certain kind of gusto, determination. The word in Pali is virya. It's spelled virya, V-I-R-Y-A. It's considered one of the factors of enlightenment. The quality of determination, of perseverance, of energy, of commitment. And it's one of those qualities that is unconditional. It's really a natural part of us, this quality of virya. And I don't know if any of you noticed, but during the sitting tonight, I said, well, if your mind is a bit sluggish, a bit dull, then arouse a little energy. Come a little closer to the object. So there's 3 activating qualities that we can bring to our life, to an activity, to a project, to whatever it is. There's 3 qualities that are activating. One is investigation, and the way I thought of it tonight is come a little closer to the object of meditation, to what you're paying attention to. That itself brings energy. And then the other is arouse a little energy. Just, we have within us this capacity for virya, for determination, for arousal. And then the third quality is bring a little joy, take a little delight in the experience of your body breathing. Just delight in that experience and that you're noticing it. Whatever it is that will bring you a little bit of joy. But I think in the face of so much worry and anxiety and focus on, and because worry and anxiety are so much about the imagined future and what's next, we have our energy system has gotten diminished in our lives. And when our energy system is diminished, when I'm diminished, I don't feel confident. I don't feel as much faith. I don't feel like I can just power through. Yet, just by dropping that word into my consciousness, the word courage, does it have any resonance with you? When you hear that word, for me, it awakens something that I know is in there, but it's gotten really quiet in my precious life. And there are certain things that I think are useful to consciously bring courage to be courageous about, that are easily lost in the course of our very busy lives. And I think the first one, maybe the most general, but also the most important, is the courage to be ourselves. The courage to step out of to me, the kind of tormenting comparison to an ideal of trying to fit ourselves into some ideal of who we should be, and really the courage to just be ourselves and to accept ourselves and to accept. Like tonight, I felt a little flat, a little uncertain. I felt all kinds of different things. Just the courage to just put it out there or be that way, be as I am, and not think I have to fit myself into some kind of ideal. Because that, to me, is I think one of the great causes of being depressed is not allowing ourselves to just have an authentic life. I've been around some people lately who are caught up. Right? One person in particular I'm thinking of who's a bit caught up in his role in the family, and it seems like it's innocent, but it seems like that person's caught up in an idea that they're supposed to be the caretaker or the powerful one or the one that has it together. And I can see in the face of that, they're really not living their best life. They're not actually letting themselves be occasionally off duty, not holding on to that identity, not holding on to that role. And to me, that's the courage to just both attune to and then to just be as you are. And maybe it's more important, not so much about roles, but just moment to moment. Like, let yourself be. It's really, in a sense, that being, that just experience of not being somebody, but being not even nobody. I always think of that silly poem, everybody wants to be somebody, but nobody wants to be nobody. But if that somebody could just be nobody, that nobody would really be somebody. If we could just let it go. The courage to open our hearts to others with different views, customs, races, religions, classes, education, just the whole range of ways that we separate ourselves out. The courage to actually melt away the boundaries of otherness and open our hearts, especially to different views. The courage to look beyond our opinions and views and grievances, see our common humanity. That's a big one. And it takes courage, because it's really easy, much easier to just stay in our silos of people who agree with us and who are like us, who look like us. And so courage to connect with others, courage to face, and I already spoke of this when I talked about Abhaya, the fearlessness, the courage to face the reality of impermanence, to keep it, as Don Juan said, to keep it on your shoulder, death on your shoulder as an advisor, to every day reflect on the reality of whatever arises passes away. And I've said this so many times on Tuesday nights, but impermanence was the Buddha's guru, not a human being, not a person, but the reality of sickness, aging, death, change, loss, that is the courage to just face that. And that brings fearlessness. Because the time of loss and illness and death is completely uncertain, yet it's inevitable. So it takes courage to face that. It takes courage to be tender, not just with others. I talked about opening our hearts to others, but tender with ourselves. And in a way, tender with ourselves is one side of it is being kind to ourselves and compassionate, forgiving. But that may even be more than I don't think that comes easily. I think what we can accomplish is being tender with ourselves, meaning let ourselves feel. Let the world of our underlying world of moods and emotions be, that internal weather, be as welcome and actually embraced as the outer weather. And if the courage to actually feel and not be so afraid of our feelings, like what's become obvious in both with myself and functioning in the role of Dharma teacher for the last almost 40 years, is we are unbelievable at analyzing and thinking about our feelings and recognizing the historical causes and conditions. We're terrible at feeling them, at just feeling them. And yet it's the feeling of what's going on, the courage to actually feel that mysterious world of unbidden moods and emotions. It's that ability and willingness and courage to feel it that quiets us down, that discharges so much of our angst, so much of our compulsive action comes from moving away from not having the courage to feel. Most of it's innocent, and we don't even know that we're moving away from something. But to stop, for anybody who just stops, notice how challenging it is to just stop and feel. That's why it's so essential to. That's why I think this beautiful poem from, I think it was either Rumi or Hafez, one of those ecstatic poets, where it says, just sit there, don't do a thing. For your separation from God is the hardest work in this world. It takes courage to stop and don't do a thing. I've noticed recently that when I actually stop, I was discussing this with my brother, who I recently saw, along with my almost 98-year-old mother. And I was saying that when I sit with my with my feet on the ground and my knees, just side by side. And I feel the stillness. There's so much energy that's moving that I noticed this kind of habit or reactive pattern of needing to cross my legs. Have any of you ever noticed that? The need to cross your legs. And to me, it's just the revelation of that is that I'm not able to actually feel. I'm blocking a certain kind of aliveness. And that when I just have the courage to just stay there, a whole different reservoir of energy that I'm habitually blocking actually starts to flow. And then I become quite a lot more alive. And so the courage to be alive. And it's that feeling of being alive that comes from being really present. Because if I'm really present, if we are present, there's a lot less of us as an idea and more of us as a connected, as a collective. It's why often that people who get engaged in something that's bigger than themselves, like a cause or some kind of social action, they feel so enlivened by it because the engagement, the presentness of it lessens the amount of self-preoccupation. And with less self-preoccupation and just more engagement, there's so much more aliveness. So the courage to be alive, the courage to let go of our usual self-protection. Of course, we have to be able to acknowledge that we're protecting ourselves, that we're hiding ourselves away in some kind of fear, dullness, safety, preciousness, comfort zone. Just the willingness to see what is it that's actually keeping us from being alive. And then having the courage to feel it. Courage to, as Noemi was so courageously investigating, inquiring into a thought of my mother is not my mother. So for each of us it takes a certain courage to question the very idea of ourselves. And we can just walk around in a kind of trance of a self-view. I'm a this, I'm a that, But when we stop and we have the courage to see, well, what am I without that thought? What am I in real time? What am I after my last identity has passed and before the next one comes? What's my experience? It takes courage to let go, to jump into the void in a way. I love this passage. I guess we're running out of time, so I'll just share with you, to me, one of the beautiful passages on courage that I've ever read. It's from Women of the Way by Sally Tisdale. It's about a nun, an ancient nun named Tajitsu, who said, standing on the small porch of Hakujan, she saw the shadow of a little wren cross the footpath, followed by the shadow of a hungry crow. And she saw that the little wren arose, abided, and fell away. And then she saw that arising arose, abided, and fell away. And that abiding arose, abided, and fell away. And that falling away arose, abided, and fell away. She saw that knowing this arose, abided, and fell away. Then she knew there was nothing more than this. No ground, nothing to lean on stronger than the cane she held. Nothing to lean upon at all. And no one leaning. And she opened the clenched fist in her mind and let go, and fell into the midst of everything. So may we all have the courage to fall into the midst of everything. May we all cultivate courage in all its forms. And may our practice tonight and every night be dedicated to all. So thanks for your attention. I guess we have a minute for announcements, if you don't mind sticking around for a moment.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking around.
So I put all the announcements in the chat, but I'll just point them out. Howie is leading an online half-day retreat on March. Oh.
Full day retreat.
Oh, day long, excuse me. An online day-long retreat on Sunday, March 24th. That's next Sunday, from 10 to 3 online. There is a registration link in the chat. You might have to kind of scroll up because it's the first thing I posted in the chat. And registration is now open to everyone for the Spirit of Insight, Dharma, and Awakening on-land retreat at Spirit Rock, July 29th to August 4th. And the link is in the chat, or you can find that on the Spirit Rock website. And I also just posted how to offer dana, generosity. Thank you very much for any donations you're able to give to support the teachings and our teacher. And all of the ways to do that are also in the chat. So thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for your dana of co-hosting. And just a reminder that the day long is through Spirit Rock, and the title of the day long is Calming the Restless Mind. So it's all about how to have a little bit more balance, more calm, more peace in this very unpeaceful world. So come one, come all. It's all through Spirit Rock. So please come.
And if you don't catch that link in the chat, you will find this all the same information in our weekly email that went out today to tell you about tonight and all the other things.
Thank you.
Available through Mission Dharma.
Okay. So feel free to say goodnight to each other, and really wonderful being with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Howie. Thank you.
Sure. Thank
you,
you.
Howie. Good night.
Thank you. Good
Night,
night.
everyone.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Howie.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Thank you, Howie. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Howie. Thank you.
Sweet dreams, Mark. Hey, Michael Sawyer in Edmonton. Glad you're with us. Thanks again, Catherine.
Nice to see you.
Same to you.